This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Michael.
Fuck. My name's Michael. I'm an alcoholic. I had a park like 16 blocks away, and thinking they really should have a fucking spot for me. You know, I got a nice car, and it's really a fucking hassle for me to come over here, you know, all the way from Santa Monica, and so I squeezed my car in between a couple cars like a few blocks away, and I get out of these cars, and there was like these four cool Spanish guys hanging out drinking. And obviously, hopefully, they're keeping an eye on my car. And then one of them says, "Hey, man, those are really nice wheels." And I'm thinking, do I get in the car and move it? I said, "Fuck it, man. I'll get a new car if they take it, you know. Whatever." It's funny, you know, every time I come to this meeting, I think there's going to be some fucking disgruntled AA member driving through these two doors right here. You know what I mean? I see the headlights, and and everybody in the front row like, oh my God, you know, and, you know, somebody like, AA didn't work for me, and I'm gonna fucking show them. It's funny, I was reading on the internet that this guy in Long Beach at the clubhouse, you know, he walked up to, hey, where the fuck you going? All right, you coming back, right? She's cute, you know. Cute girls in the front row are very important when you're speaking. You know, it's the truth, man. It is. And the second row, just, you know. You know, I was reading this guy, he walked up to this clubhouse in Long Beach, and his sponsor was standing there, and he shot and killed him a couple months ago because, I guess, do you read about that? It's some crazy shit, man, in AA, man. We are some sick fucking people. I mean, it really is. I mean, I think about what can happen here in any given moment. You put 100 people that are really sick in a small room, and I'm thinking about like every thought that's being processed in everybody's mind right now. We could have a novel that was this big by the end of the meeting. Like, there's so much crazy shit going on in people's heads right now. You got no idea. You know, like, you know, you're sitting in the meeting, God, I know she's fucking somebody else, you know, or, you know, I mean, it just doesn't stop, man. My head wakes up about 2 hours before my body does, and it just starts in on me. It always has. You know, I don't know if I was born an alcoholic, but I know that being an alcoholic, I suffer from not being enough. And that is the truth, man. I'm not enough, and I never have been ever since I was a kid, way before I started drinking and using. You know, I'm bodily and mentally different. It talks about, welcome back, by the way. It talks, you know, we're polite in Alcoholics Anonymous to a point, you know what I mean? Depending on how we're treating ourselves. And if I treat myself well, I'm a polite kind of guy. But when I'm not taking care of myself, you know, people are afraid of me because of the way I treat myself and the people around me. And it's funny, you know, people really aren't afraid of me for the most part anymore. You know, everywhere I went, people were afraid of me because they didn't know quite what was going to happen. People that really knew me, they would see me and they would definitely act like they didn't see me because they didn't know what was gonna happen because I was very unpredictable. You know, I'm going to start in the beginning. I'm white, which I know it's obvious to you guys, but it wasn't to me for a long time because I like to smoke crack in South Central, which is a whole nother thing, which we're going to get into. And I'm going to, by the way, I know this is an AA meeting. I truly know that. I'm going to go out on a limb. I am. I'm just going to put it out there. And I think there's a drug addict in the room. I do. I really feel that there might be. Yep, see, I know. But I know there's some purists in the room, too. Some AA purists. Let me tell you something. Every one of my days started and ended at a 7-Eleven. Trust me. And, and they don't sell crack there. Although I will tell you that I used to wait at 3rd and Gardner. I'll tell you what kind of crackhead I am, just so you can kind of know what the fuck is going on here. I used to go in a car, and I used to go inside of the 7-Eleven. I'd get a mayonnaise, buy some mayonnaise and some baking soda and some Evian. Of course, we want to use good water, right? And I would take all the mayonnaise out of the jar, and I would clean it out, and I'd put the water, and then I put the baking soda, and I would sit in my car like that, waiting for the dealer. And then he would come, and I would put the whole ounce in the mayonnaise jar, and I would walk right into the 7-Eleven and cook it in the microwave. And I got to tell you, man, it's amazing how resourceful we get when we're out there. And if you're not living anywhere, you have to kind of, I remember my man behind the counter, "What are you doing over there? What do you do?" So let me tell you something. If you call the police, I will fucking kill you. And he actually knew. He's like, I know you will. I know you will. Just let me fucking do this. It doesn't take but a minute. You know what I mean? It's gonna be quick and I'm gone. Fuck, man. Just let me cook my drugs, man. I lived my first 10 years down in. I lived on 74th and Crenshaw, which is an interesting spot for a guy that looks like me. And there was 5 kids in my family, me being one of the 5, obviously, and 2 parents. And we lived actually in a nice, legitimate little enclave of Inglewood. And I really, really liked it, actually. I'm not mad at the people down there. I'm really not. And we all went to the same school, which was interesting. So we had 5 kids in the same school. And my first addiction was fire. I was really into that. I would love to light fires. And they, just like my alcoholism, got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll never forget my last really good one. I had got it started right at about the end of lunch because I knew I wanted to get out of, 5th period. And I was probably in like 1st or 2nd grade. So I get this going. I got the whole side of the church going. It was a fucking good one, right? And just waiting for the fucking fire bell. Ding, 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 ding. And then everybody rushes out and they line you up. And I got in the front row as I usually did so I could see everything because I'm very visual. But I still am, by the way. And I remember the fire guy. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, yeah, that's him." Well, it's him because he looks very excited because I was, I was so fucking excited. So he looked at me and goes, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, not only is he excited, but he's at every fire. Every single one, he's up front. And that was the first time I had ever been searched. Wasn't the last, trust me. Was the first time, and they found the butane and the matches and the napkins, the whole pyrotechnic, the whole thing. And that's when they started to ask the question, what's wrong with Michael? And I had not drank or used, at all. And I remember the principal and the first intervention where the guy with the fire people and the LAPD or the Inglewood PD and my dad that actually worked for the sheriff's department at the time. And it's like a whole fucking thing. And we're in the principal's office and they started to ask that question. I'm always usually one room away. When you can hear them talking about you, like, hey, what are we going to do? And what's wrong with him? And is this going to stop? And they made me a deal. They said, listen, if this is how it's going to work. If you don't light any fires Monday through Friday, I guess one day at a time, but at the time I wasn't knowing that. If you don't light any fires between Monday and Friday, you come to the principal's office on Friday, we're going to give you a prize. And then you have a prize for the weekend. So I got to tell you, man, it worked for a little while. And I like prizes. And so that's my fire thing. And I'm going to touch on this really quickly. And my mom had 5 kids. And for some reason, she was just very violent with me. And, she just beat me within an inch of my life for about 10 years. I don't know why. The other 4 kids didn't get it, but I got it. And there's a lot of trips to the hospital, a lot of bad things happen. She'd always tell me, like, you better get the story straight this time on how it happened. And, I got the story straight. And it's funny. It just made me kind of feel different early. I didn't feel safe at home. I can tell you that much. And I used to like to stay at school because I knew what would happen when I get home. And I was just a kid just trying to survive. And we moved up to, we're like the Jeffersons, man. We moved up to Hancock Park, moving on up over there to the spot to a nice neighborhood. And we're going to more private schools. And I have like 4 sets of cousins living within a mile. I got 20 cousins living very close. We're all in the same parish. And my mom moved out and left my dad with 5 kids. My dad's now, he's working his way up the ladder in the county law profession. And my dad's now raising the 5 kids. It's a very interesting time in my life because he was trying to keep the mortgage going and the private tuitions. This man started to watch us after school. That's when we get in the most trouble. And he chose me. He watched me a little bit too closely. And I remember going to my dad with that information, and he's like, "Listen, man, we're never going to talk about this. It just never happened." So I was like, "All right." I was 10 years old, so I had some pretty legitimate problems at 10. I have some sex problems and love identification problems and authority problems, and I'm fucking angry. That's what I am. And I haven't started to drink yet, obviously, but I'm growing up in this house. It's like the house of the rising sun. It's Delta House. We live in this nice neighborhood where there's nice house, and then our house, and then a nice house. And I'll just give you a quick snippet of my house. No lawn and trees that are dead, and a lot of cars on the lawn that should be lawn. And then I have about 6 cars in the driveway that none of them run, but they're gonna run one day. And a lot of murals painted in that house. There's no furniture downstairs because we got room. You walk in the house, and we used to take the furniture out on the weekend so we can throw these parties, and then it just got to the point the furniture just didn't make it back in one day. And so there was like a dance floor and a place where the band set up, and then everybody had a crazy bedroom upstairs. I had the Pink Floyd room. My sister had the Bob Dylan room. My brothers had Grateful Dead shit all over the place. There's a lot of murals painted everywhere. I was hanging out with some interesting people, doing some weird shit. I started to go in and out of East Lake Juvenile Hall, doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, and really, really young. I hadn't started drinking yet, but I was doing a lot of crime. Seemed to like crime, and don't know why. And then my dad just moved out, and he just paid the bills at the house. He moved into an apartment close by, and I was 14, and now I have no parental supervision. I got super long, blonde, feathered hair. I'm like just brushing it, and my nickname was like Farrah because like I would be walking on the street, and guys would be honking, and then they're like, "It's a dude," So, It's fucking interesting. So, I'll never forget it. It was, I had sold a pound of mushrooms to the police officer at Fairfax High School, which was my last day of high school. Now, when they came to get me, and it didn't work out too well, and my dad was really done with me. He was really, really afraid of me. I was doing a lot of weird stuff, I was very, very violent. I was really, really into some serious crime and some serious bad behavior. He became really afraid of me. And I used to go down to his office, and he used to hide from me when I was looking for him to get money. And he'd tell everybody, tell him I'm not here. And he didn't know what to do with me. And then he gave me to the state of California to raise until I was 18. He put me, I was put in a youth authority, which is an interesting place for a guy like me. It was a wake-up call. And what happened was, in youth authority, it was just, I didn't think much of it until I got there. And I was thinking, like, what's going on? Like, what happened? And then I found out through a chain of events, after you talked to the people, they said, yeah, your dad is, you're gonna stay with us until you're 18, I guess, because your dad's given you the state of California. And that fucking feeling of, like, man, that fucking rejection. That rejection that makes me feel so dirty and unwanted and unloved. And all that shit came up, and I became really violent in that place. And I got in a lot of trouble in there. And then my dad eventually, he took me out of there because I think he was getting some pressure from the family. Everybody's like, don't you have 5 kids? And, he can only explain where Michael is because it's not like Michael's on vacation. He's 15 and he's at super trouble, and you got to keep an eye on Michael. So it's not like, oh, yeah, we let Michael, go to the Caribbean or something for the weekend. So it caught up with him. The family he got in some trouble, I guess, and he came to get me and got me out. And I remember getting home after a long time, and, of course, they'd given away my room to my little brother, and I went crazy. And I put my foot through a plate glass window and almost cut my leg off. So I was out of youth authority, and I was in a hospital room within an hour. I was just fucking crazy. And he was scared of me again. And I remember running around, and my leg was bleeding, and I was carrying around my brother's bong, and I couldn't find a match to light it. I was just like, somebody give me a fucking light so I can take a bong hit, because this is fucking painful. I will tell you that my dad sold that house, and I didn't want to move, and the dude was like, you got to move. And I was like, dude, I ain't going anywhere, man. I live here. And, the whole house was empty except for my room, and nothing had moved. And he's like, I'm going to call I said, call the police. I said, go ahead. Go ahead, because when I get out, I'm burning it down. Trust me. And he totally knew I was telling the truth, because he actually lived right next door for the last 8 years. He knew everything. So they gave me some gate money to get me out. And I hit the streets, pushed all those cars out in the street. Fuck, I lost a couple good cars that day. I did, too. I wish I had them now. This guy, David, man, he called me. We were over at the spot. He goes, we're going to go do some crack. And I didn't know much about that. In fact, I had never done it. Not like I read about it in Time magazine, but I'd heard about it. And we went down to St. Andrews and Pico, and I took my first hit. It fucking changed my life, man. I was in handcuffs within 3 hours of that first hit. I'll never forget it, man. We got into some trouble, and I had finally did some crime, and then got my shit, and then I'm in the car, and we were being chased, and we thought we lost him. And I remember sitting in there, and I was just about to take my first hit, and the fucking cop is trying to break the window. I'm like, fuck that. Let me get my hit on. So, I'm just fucking burning it up, man, because I'm going down anyway, man. And he was fucking, we were in my boy's IROC, and he's like, open the door. I said, you open the door, I'm going to fucking kill you. I'm going to get this hit in me. So, fuck that guy. He's in prison now anyway, man. He fucked my whole life up, giving me my first hit of crack. What the fuck's wrong with that man? I hope he's getting fucked in the ass right now. I really do, man. That guy fucking changed my life, man. Although, it was, I kept that pipe hot for 10 years, boy. And I really did put my work in, let me tell you. And I did a lot of crazy shit. I did, man. I've seen a lot of things that some people in this room, I think, have seen. But I've seen a lot of things that a lot of people in this room should never see. I see somebody professionally now, obviously. And it's only because a long time ago, I was reading my inventory to Dale Carter, and this guy had been in the pen for like forever, man. And he's half black and half white. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm reading my inventory, and you know how we kind of speed up the words a little bit, and he's like, what was that? What was that? He's like, oh, you might need it. And then afterwards he goes, those two things, you should probably see somebody professionally about those items. I'm like, whatever. And fucking 20 years later, I'm still talking about it. I'm talking about trauma that happens to us out there that changes your life. You can't shake it. This guy I see now, he's like, man, you're like a Vietnam vet, but you never went to Vietnam. I mean, you just seen some weird shit. You've done some things that, are very hard to forgive yourself about. And I didn't think that I was ever going to get better. I really didn't. I lived on the streets for about 9.5 years as indigent in Los Angeles, and I was in and out of a lot of different county facilities and state facilities and a lot of shelters and a lot of those places that we stay at. And I remember Sandy came up to see me at Supermax before I was being shipped to somewhere. They put me at this spot after I got sentenced. And him and my current sponsor, didn't you come up there with him? Yeah, and I got the whole like keep away outfit on, and I'm just crazy. And they're like, "Fuck, man, how'd you get all the way over here?" And a lot of poor choices, I went to AA, and it really wasn't for me. My buddy dropped me off at the Pacific Group. He said, "Go in the door. I'm gonna park the car." I never saw Homeboy again. And Pacific, they were not fucking ready for me for sure. And I was in this Sunday night meeting over at Ohio Street, and this redhead chick, crazy ass hair, Jewish chick too, from the Valley. What the fuck is that about? So, I'm like from Hancock Park. I'm an Italian-Irish Catholic cat, and I didn't even know where Encino is. I've never been there. And she's moving around her head, and I'm trying to pay attention to the speaker, and she's crazy. She had the big Barbra Streisand hair. I tapped this girl on her shoulder, and I said, "Listen, man, can you stop moving? I'm trying to pay attention to the speaker and all." And she turned around, and she's like, "What? You fucking slipper? You live at the fucking Skid Row Mission. You've been in and out for blah, blah, blah. You're wasting a seat. You're a fucking loser, blah, 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 blah." And everybody's like, Mike's going to hit her for sure. I mean, Mike's going to fucking hit this girl. And I was sitting there thinking, man, I really want to be with this girl, I really want to. And, I really did. Sandy knows, man, I lived with that girl for a year and a half, man. She had an apartment. I remember meeting somebody in AA. I'll never forget it. And he said he had an apartment. I said, "You got your apartment? You got your? You mean you have your own place to live?" I couldn't fucking believe it. I thought everybody was homeless in LA. So I moved in this chick's apartment, and I remember I got a year sober, and she got 2 years. We're in the 99-cent store of all places, pushing that fucking purple cart, and I'm thinking, is this it? Is this it? I'm like a fucking hardened criminal, and I'm in the 99-cent store trying to get a deal on some toothpaste. I'm like, we should just steal everything. And I was like, I want to get loaded, and I was waiting for her response, and she said, "So do I." It's a long story. We ended up getting loaded that night, and I started cooking. I like to party naked, so I got my towel on, and I got the whole Chef Boyardee set up in the kitchen, the water, the frying pan, all this, the porn, everything's it's on. And she's like, "I'm gonna snort some." I'm like, "It's a fucking waste, but here you go." And gave her little allotment, and then I remember she was in the bedroom, man, and I hear this banging, and I walked in, and she had OD'd that night. And I was thinking, man, the fuck is this? And then I was thinking, I thought she liked to party like me. I really, this is the first thing. I've been waiting for a long time to do this. She told me she liked to party like me. And then I'm thinking, man, this is all that I know how to do, man. I just rip through people's lives and destroy them, myself and anybody around me. It's just what I do. That's all that I do. But I had never worked the steps. I didn't get a sponsor. I just put the plug in the jug and went to some meetings, got a little shit time under my belt. And I went in and out for a long time, and I did a lot of crazy shit out there. I used to go to my dad's office and ask him for money when I was loaded. And this one particular time I went, and I didn't have no shoes. I was really dirty. I had started on Thursday and hit his office on a Monday morning. So I'd been up for 4 days. I'd given up the shoes and I gave everything up. And I walked in his office, and he gave me all, he ended up giving me all the money in his pocket that day. And he just says, "I never want to see you again. I'm gonna get a restraining order out against you, and this is it, man. We're done. We're done." And I'll fast forward to like 7 years ago. I'm sober now, a little over 14 years, which is a fucking miracle. But when I hit 7, he was retiring from this job. And he says, "We're having a party. We're going to be at the Biltmore Hotel. It's a retirement party. You got to come, Mike." I'm his favorite out of the 5 kids right now. And I have been for a while. He called me last week out of the blue. And he called me out of the blue, and it was a restricted call. And I was like, I usually don't pick those up. I don't know what the fuck we did before caller ID. And I answered, and he goes, "Hey, it's Dad." And I said, "What's happening?" He goes, "I just called to tell you I'm just really proud of you." It's like the power of Alcoholics Anonymous has completely saved his kid's life. Somebody who he was so fucking afraid of, who knew was going to kill somebody or be killed out there on the streets. He's just so fucking proud of me. I mean, he really, really is. He goes, "I'm always here if you want to talk." And he called me last week. He goes, "I'm always here." And he goes, "I just want to tell you I did the best I could." And he's not that guy, man. He's never said nothing like that to me. I don't know why he called me last week to tell me that. And, he had me speak on behalf of the family. There was like 400 people at this party for him. And there was a lot of judges there that had seen me chained up to a couple fools with the different jumpsuits. And, and they talked to me and they go, "Wow, man, your life, you seem so different." It's just like, and I told him about Alcoholics Anonymous. That's fucking saved my life. Because I came here and I gave myself permission and a break. Because I thought I was the piece of shit that they told me I was. I've been told that I'm a piece of shit, that I'm fat, that I'm ugly, that I'm stupid, that I'm not to be trusted, I don't deserve love, and I don't deserve a good life. And if you tell any human being that for 30 years, they're going to believe it. They're going to treat themselves a certain way and treat people around them a certain way. And that's just the way it's going to be. I thought my life consisted of coming in and out of institutions, and that was it. That was as good as it's ever going to get. And in between those times, I'll be living on the streets, because that's it. That's my life. And, and I remember getting shot, and I smoked crack for like 4 hours after I got shot with this bullet in me, and everybody's like, you might want to, that thing's smelling. I remember cutting, and I remember going to the fucking hospital, and the guy's like, well, when did this happen? And I just said, listen, man, it's a long story. There's some crack and alcohol involved, and let's just go ahead and keep it going. I got insurance. So, and I cut my finger off, stealing my own car stereo out of my own car. I got to rip it out fast. I cut my finger off. Long story short, I duct taped it back on, and I went to the hospital like 4 hours later. They gave me the same, like, when did this happen? Like, it's a long story, man. Just let's keep it moving. I'm just a fucking disaster is what I am. And I will tell you, when I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous this time, 14 years ago, I had suffered so much. And the odds of me having a good life is probably zero. Just fucking zero. Because I just don't believe that it's going to happen for me. I'm just too sick. I'm too sick. I'm too far gone. I've gone down, way too down the scale. I'm too damaged to recover. I don't deserve love. My buddy Johnny K tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, you know what? You aren't doing those things anymore, so you might want to give yourself a break. I feel like God tapped me on the shoulder 14 years ago plus. And he said, if you come in here right now, I will give you a life that's so good. You've suffered long enough. And you're a good guy. And come to find out, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict that has chose a very interesting way to live. That has given myself a break. And given myself permission to have a wonderful, wonderful life. This time when I came back, my feet were so infected from living on the streets, I'll never forget it. I saw my boy Jerry C., I'll call him out, and I was yellow. I was in really, really bad shape, and he came up to me at a meeting, and I was like 2 or 3 days sober. I was living on the streets, this sobriety. And he's like, my God, you look like you're almost fucking dead. He goes, what's going on? I said, I'm in a lot of fucking trouble is what's going on. I'm sober a few days. I'm living on the street. There's a lot of people looking for me, some with badges, some with not. And I don't know. He goes, I want you to go to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor for sure. And I remember going over to his doctor, and they got my slippers off, my feet, and my feet were so fucked up. I remember he says, we got to go to the hospital right away. We went over to St. John's, and this guy called his guy, some podiatrist, and they rushed me over to some spot at St. John's, and they started to work on my feet. And when the podiatrist got there, he looked at me he had the same question for me as the other doctors did. He goes, when did this happen? And I got to tell you, man, for the first time in my life, I just felt the fucking tears coming down my face, and I just said, it's a long story. But I'm sober like a week in AA, and I'm fucking trying. You know what? And I felt like they weren't wasting their fucking time. For the first fucking time in my life, I felt like I was worth saving. That my life is worth saving, and I can have a great life. And I got to tell you, I can't get into it now, but I got the greatest life, man. If it gets any better, I'm going to throw up. I mean, it really does. I'm off the streets. I created a nice little life. And I'm extra sick, so I go to extra meetings, man. I stay extra close. I call my sponsor every day. I'm so passionate about my life. People go, you're so fucking... And I go, it's a long story. It's just a long story, but I got to stay on top of this deal. I really, really do. And I just feel so overpaid in Alcoholics Anonymous. It has been so good to me. It really, really has. And it's taken me a long time to create what's going on right now. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface at 14 years of something fucking deep and real. You know, I really do. And if you're new, I mean, anything can happen here. The miracle and the power of Alcoholics Anonymous is so alive in my life, I can't tell you. And I just surrendered. And I've given myself permission to have a great life. And I'm not the person that they told me I was my whole life. I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not stupid. I'm not ugly. I'm not dumb. I do deserve love. And I'm not too damaged to recover. And that's the truth. Thanks.